Join us as we explore Paris during the 1700s, a time when it stood as one of Europe's most magnificent cities through an era marked by sophistication, intellectual awakening, and eventual upheaval. Through cutting-edge AI technology, we're bringing centuries-old engravings and paintings to life as photorealistic imagery, allowing you to experience what daily existence truly felt like in 18th century Paris, France. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Andrew Restores History and tell us in the comments which country or city you're watching from. During the entire 18th century, approximately 600,000 residents called Paris home, placing it among the planet's most populous cities. The city served as the epicenter of artistic expression, philosophical thought, and cultural development, where Voltaire, Rousseau, and other Enlightenment intellectuals challenged every assumption about societal organization. Yet, beneath the opulent mansions and refined architectural beauty, existed a metropolis of dramatic inequalities. The aristocracy enjoyed luxurious lifestyles along the Seine, while the majority of Parisian citizens endured hardship in overcrowded, unsanitary districts. As this video concludes, we'll present images depicting the French Revolution rendered in vivid detail. That explosive turning point in 1789, when accumulated centuries of disparity burst forth into violent conflict that transformed France and reverberated throughout the entire world. Here, we see the Seine River, with a view toward the Ile de la Cité, captured in the 1750s by Nicolas Jean-Baptiste Regenay. Spanning the river is the Pont Neuf, which, despite its name, had already stood for more than 150 years, having been finished in 1607. The Seine functioned as a commercial waterway, crowded with timber rafts, cargo vessels transporting wine from Burgundy, and merchant ships delivering coal and grain to feed Paris's 600,000 inhabitants. Along the riverside quays, stevedores and cart drivers worked constantly, hauling merchandise through streets thick with mud. On the right bank rises the Institut de France with its distinctive gilded dome, constructed during the 1660s. Visible in the distance are Notre-Dame Cathedral's twin towers on the Ile de la Cité, the medieval island where Paris first began. However, the river was anything but clean. Untreated sewage and industrial pollutants poured straight into the Seine, producing an overpowering odor. Despite this, Parisians continued drawing their drinking water from these contaminated waters. In modern times, the Seine has undergone extensive cleaning, and its banks have been designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites. This engraving, created by Peter Schenk, depicts Notre-Dame Cathedral during the early 1700s. Positioned at Paris's heart on the Ile de la Cité, construction commenced in 1163 and required nearly 200 years to finish, resulting in one of French Gothic architecture's most outstanding examples. The cathedral's famous twin towers and spectacular rose window commanded attention across the medieval island. In contrast to today's open square, Notre Dame was encircled by tightly clustered buildings that pressed right against its exterior walls. The cramped alleyways remained dark and filthy, blanketed in horse droppings and refuse, with exposed sewers producing a suffocating stench. Regardless of the squalor, Notre Dame continued as Paris's spiritual heart, staging royal ceremonies, religious celebrations, and daily worship services that drew all segments of society, from monarchs to the destitute. Today, Notre Dame continues to occupy the Ile de la Cité, though the surrounding medieval structures were removed during the 1800s. The cathedral sustained severe fire damage in 2019, and although it reopened in 2024, final restoration work continues. Here is the Hôtel de Soissons, a splendid palace constructed for Catherine de' Medici between 1572 and 1584. Its most striking feature was the elevated astronomical column tower on the right, a 28-meter-high structure intended for astrological study, as Catherine held deep interest in astrology. By the 18th century, ownership had transferred to the princes of Soissons, housing various members of the nobility, though it no longer served as a principal royal dwelling. The formal gardens displayed geometric patterns characteristic of French Renaissance landscaping, forming an elegant sanctuary in what had evolved into one of Paris's most densely inhabited neighborhoods. The palace stood near Les Halles, Paris's central marketplace since the 12th century. The neighboring streets ranked among the city's busiest and most filthy, perpetually covered in decomposing vegetables, fish entrails, animal blood from butcher shops, and massive piles of horse manure. The marketplace's smell was unbearable, and the confined medieval streets were shadowy, congested, and muddy. The juxtaposition between these refined palace gardens and the wretched streets immediately beyond its walls was remarkable. The palace slowly deteriorated and was torn down in 1748. Today, modern Les Halles shopping district occupies the location, with no remnant of Catherine de Médicis' magnificent palace remaining. This shows the Palais du Temple, displaying the entrance to the Knights of Malta headquarters in Paris. Initially constructed as the European stronghold of the Knights Templar during the 11th and 12th centuries, ownership passed to the Knights Hospitaller following the Templars' suppression in 1307. By the 1700s, this neoclassical gateway provided access to the Grand Prior of Malta's residence in France, a position frequently held by French princes. The temple enclosure operated as a semi-independent zone within Paris, exempted from standard laws and taxation. This privileged status drew aristocrats seeking discretion and craftsmen seeking liberation from guild restrictions. The district gained recognition for workshops manufacturing luxury items outside guild oversight. The temple's most significant moment arrived during the Revolution, when the medieval tower served as the prison for King Louis XVI and his family in 1792. Napoleon ordered the complete demolition of the complex between 1808 and 1811 to prevent it from becoming a shrine for royalist sympathizers. Today, absolutely no trace of this formerly powerful fortress exists. This is the Foire Saint-Germain, among Paris's most celebrated seasonal fairs. Conducted annually for 6 weeks spanning February to Easter on the grounds of the Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. The refined neoclassical arcades contained hundreds of temporary vendors selling luxury merchandise, silk fabrics, jewelry, books, porcelain, and exotic imports. The upper pavilion level featured theatrical productions, including early opera and comedy performances. Every social class mixed here. Aristocrats in ornate silk garments alongside merchants and street hawkers. The sheltered arcades also contained cafes, restaurants, and gambling venues, essentially functioning as a temporary shopping center and entertainment facility. The fair was shut down during the Revolution in 1789, and the structures were demolished between 1813 and 1818. Today, no trace survives of this once spectacular seasonal attraction. This is the Hôtel de Luynes, a grand aristocratic mansion belonging to the Duke of Luynes, situated along the Seine on the left bank. The Luynes family represented prominent French nobility, with their dukedom established in 1619 for Charles d'Albert, a favorite of King Louis XIII. The palace embodied the lifestyle enjoyed by French high aristocracy during the 1700s. It showcased elegant classical architecture featuring multiple wings, steep slate roofing, and decorative facades typical of noble estates. Possessing direct river access conveyed both prestige and practicality. Boats could transport goods and guests straight to the palace's private dock. These aristocratic mansions contained dozens of chambers for grand entertainment, private quarters, servants' accommodations, and formal gardens. The private quays received better maintenance than public thoroughfares, regularly cleaned by servants despite substantial pollution from the Seine. During the Revolutionary period, such aristocratic extravagance became contentious. Many noble residences were destroyed throughout the French Revolution, and the Hôtel de Luynes no longer exists today. This is the Palace of Versailles, the spectacular royal residence positioned approximately 12 miles southwest of Paris. Though not technically within Paris, we couldn't produce this video about France during the 1700s without including it. Developed by King Louis XIV between 1661 and 1715, he converted his father's hunting retreat into Europe's largest palace, featuring over 700 chambers, extensive gardens, and intricate fountains. The palace underwent dramatic expansion during the 1680s, creating the massive wings and courtyards visible here. In 1682, he relocated the entire French court and government from Paris to Versailles, establishing it as the hub of political authority. Arriving nobles proceeded through 3 consecutive courtyards, with the palace's commanding facade expanding larger at each approach. Inside, thousands of courtiers vied for the king's attention through complex ceremonies. On the garden facade, formal landscapes designed by André Lenoir showcase geometric arrangements, fountains, and tree-lined promenades where aristocrats strolled in their most elegant attire. The gardens received meticulous care, though horse droppings from constant carriages and the sheer volume of visitors meant conditions weren't as immaculate as paintings suggest. However, Versailles' extravagance demanded tremendous expense, depleting vast tax revenues while ordinary French citizens endured poverty and hunger. This disconnect between royal opulence and public hardship would eventually ignite the revolution. Today, Versailles remains among the world's most visited landmarks, a UNESCO World Heritage Site drawing millions of visitors each year. This is the Paris Observatory, one of the world's oldest astronomical observatories maintaining continuous operation. Established by King Louis XIV in 1667, construction concluded in 1672. The structure was purposefully designed for astronomical study. Its 4 facades aligned precisely with the cardinal directions, and its meridian line served as the reference for all French maps until the Greenwich meridian became the international standard in 1884. The observatory demonstrated Louis XIII's dedication to science and his aspiration to establish France as the center of European scientific progress. It accommodated the newly established Académie des Sciences and attracted distinguished astronomers from throughout Europe, including Giovanni Cassini, who identified 4 moons of Saturn from this building. The site was selected on Paris's southern periphery, distant from city smoke for superior observation conditions. During the 1700s, this location remained semi-rural with surrounding fields and gardens. The observatory continues operating today as a premier astronomical research facility after more than 350 years of uninterrupted scientific activity. This is Les Invalides, founded by King Louis XIV in 1670 as a military hospital and retirement facility for wounded soldiers. Previously, disabled veterans often had no choice but to beg in the streets. Louis XIV sought to honor those who served France by offering them care and respect. The enormous complex could accommodate up to 4,000 veterans simultaneously, with dormitories, medical wards, workshops, and this vast esplanade parade ground. The distinctive Golden Dome, designed by Jules Ardouin Mansart and completed in 1706, became among Paris's most recognizable features. This engraving from approximately 1710 captures Les Invalides during its earliest years. Veterans existed under military discipline, participating in daily worship, laboring in workshops, and engaging in ceremonies. The location was cleaner than crowded central Paris, benefiting from open space and military upkeep. Today, Les Invalides continues functioning as a working military hospital and contains the Musée de l'Armée and Napoleon's tomb beneath the Golden Dome, which was installed in 1861. By the late 1780s, France faced a national crisis. Decades of costly military campaigns and lavish royal expenditure had bankrupted the kingdom. Failed harvests caused bread prices to skyrocket, while the nobility paid virtually no taxes, forcing ordinary people to shoulder the complete burden. When King Louis XVI convened the Estates General in May 1789 for the first time in 175 years, the Third Estate representing commoners insisted on genuine political authority. The king attempted to suppress their demands. On July 14, 1789, Parisians attacked the Bastille prison. The French Revolution had ignited, and violence swept across Paris as mobs targeted symbols of the old regime. This depicts the violent ransacking of the prison Saint-Lazare on July 13, 1789, one day before the storming of the Bastille. Saint-Lazare originated as a medieval leper hospital that transformed into a monastery, then a prison confining debtors and individuals imprisoned by royal decree without trial. Paris was experiencing acute bread shortages, and rumors circulated that grain was being stockpiled at Saint-Lazare while people starved. On July 13th, furious crowds overran the complex, liberated approximately 50 prisoners, and plundered the buildings. The mob confiscated stored grain, wine, and provisions, loading them onto wagons for street distribution. They methodically destroyed the prison, shattering windows, demolishing doors, and inflicting an estimated 400,000 livres in damage. Paradoxically, during the Reign of Terror between 1793 and 1794, Saint-Lazare became among Paris's most infamous revolutionary prisons, holding aristocrats and suspected counter-revolutionaries awaiting the guillotine. The complex was ultimately demolished during the 19th century, and the Gare Saint-Lazare train station now occupies portions of the site. This engraving by Hellman illustrates the storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789, one day following the Saint-Lazare attack and the French Revolution's most iconic event. The Bastille was a medieval fortress prison in eastern Paris, a despised symbol of royal tyranny where the king could detain anyone without trial. On the morning of July 14th, thousands of Parisians marched toward the Bastille, demanding weapons and gunpowder stored within. The fortress's governor, Bernard-René de Launay, refused surrender. Following hours of negotiations, the crowd launched an assault with cannons, and intense fighting erupted with musket volleys and artillery creating dense smoke. The battle continued approximately 4 hours. Nearly 100 attackers perished, but ultimately the defenders capitulated. The crowd rushed inside, released the 7 prisoners detained there, and brutally murdered Governor de Launay and several guards. Their heads were displayed through Paris on pikes. Though merely 7 prisoners were discovered inside, the Bastille's fall became the revolution's defining moment. It proved that common people could overcome royal power through force. The Bastille was entirely demolished by November 1789. Today, the Place de la Bastille and the Colonne de Juillet monument mark the location, and July 14th remains France's national holiday, Bastille Day. The magnificent palaces, churches, and institutions we've examined today reveal only half the narrative. Behind the impressive facades, most Parisians struggled under conditions we can scarcely comprehend today. The concepts of liberty, equality, and democracy that emerged from revolutionary Paris disseminated throughout Europe and beyond, fundamentally reshaping our understanding of governance, human rights, and societal structure. If you appreciated this exploration through 18th century Paris, please comment below regarding which city and era you'd like to experience next, and your hometown might be featured in our upcoming video. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the past. Andrew restores history.